Hey everyone, John here. Welcome to another episode of Itchy Mysteries. And this week we're looking into another movie that I think fits the Halloween theme of the month. Of course, last week we looked into ghosts. This week we're looking at a film that touches on witchcraft. And before I get started, I want to give a quick thank you to Selena Moffat, a brain scratcher, who let me know about this film. I checked it out today, caught it on Amazon Prime here in the US, where you can watch it for free if you're a Prime subscriber. It is called Hex Hollow. And this was a bit of a different film for me. It was not what I was expecting at all. I think that's the second week I've said this in a row. And this one, I don't know, I struggle with it a little bit. There are certain things that I really liked about it. One of the things that I liked about it is learning about a different type of, I don't even feel comfortable really calling it witchcraft, but a kind of different belief system. This thing called powwowing, which I had no idea about before. And it's interesting because it doesn't necessarily negate religion. Religion's kind of okay with this practice in a certain way. So very different from when you typically think about witchcraft and think about it, you know, having to do with satanic rituals or something of that nature. This is a very different twist on that, and it's a story about a man that was murdered because it was suspected that he was a witch, at least by one particular guy who enlisted the help of two other people to go and murder him, effectively to end what he thought was a curse on him. So, and it's interesting because it happened, I mean, not really recently, but fairly recently if you look at the time frame of when, you know, like witch trials and that kind of stuff was going on. This occurred in 1928, which is really, really late in the whole mythos of witchcraft as being looked at, and, you know, horrible things being done to people who might be practicing it. So, and it was also a piece about this area in particular in Pennsylvania. Really goes into the genealogy and the culture of that area. I really enjoyed that. There's something about certain documentaries where I like when they take me someplace I haven't been before or expose me to things that I don't know for myself or haven't experienced for myself. Definitely had a good hit of that in this film. However, one of the things that kind of works against this film for me is how much it focused on the genealogy. I don't know what it is. I think this is just a personal thing with me, but that stuff, my brain just kind of tunes out really quickly when people start talking about, you know, my great-great-grandfather was this, and he was related to this woman, and that. I don't know what it is, but I really struggle with that type of content. Luckily, it's a little heavier in the first half of this film, but the film kind of moves through that and definitely comes to some more interesting facts about the murder, about the trials that happened around the murder, what happened to the guys through the trials, what happened to them after the trials, and all of that I found really interesting and normal, what I would consider brain scratch fare. So definitely something that I think many of you would be interested in. Some pretty good shots, some pretty nice scenery going on. Didn't really notice anything special for music, which usually is a good thing. It definitely didn't call my attention to it, which in this type of piece, you really want to be focused more on the people that are talking to you and the information they're relaying to you. And that this piece was very strong in that regard. It almost felt like a trip to maybe like your grandmother's house or something like that. There was a lot of information coming from older people, but it was edited in a really good way. And it was that same kind of historical info that, I don't know, some people might enjoy more than others. That's I think the best way that I could put it. But ultimately the story is very interesting, getting a glimpse into this area, into this different background of this community that migrated to this country. I certainly appreciated being a first-generation American. So on all those levels, I think it fired pretty well. Has it scratched my itch for something witchcrafty? I don't know. I might look for some more films kind of in that vein for the rest of this month. I'll see if I could find something else in that area that might fit it just a little bit better. Because like I said at the start, I even struggle with considering this a witchcraft case outside of the fact, and maybe this is a highlight of this film, the notions of other people and how they viewed spiritual practices of someone else, and them coming to the conclusion, and then media picking that up and running with this kind of witchcraft angle for how they were presenting the story to the public. So on those levels, it certainly had some of what we typically see in these kind of witchcraft stories. I think there's this very interesting thing in this powwow methodology in terms of religious practices and how it's almost like a different mode of prayer that this film brings across, and that is very strong. And they do make a fairly straightforward comment towards the end of the film about they're trying to, the locals there want to change the perception of this story. They want to get more of the real details out there, and I think this film does serve that purpose. So I think many of you out there are going to want to check it out. For me personally, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. I know that sounds a little soft for a rating. I think on IMDb it's actually rating 7.5 out of 10. Mostly for what I saw, that was a fairly slow start, and there's such an interesting place for this film to go. It does get there, but then it moves through it kind of quickly, and I think that they really could have fleshed out a bit more of the actual backstory in that piece, as opposed to running through all this genealogy stuff. I mean, they literally trace back to like 100 years before this supposed witch even existed and kind of start the story from back there. So it certainly has a focus. I appreciate that they needed some of that information because they're trying to convey this cultural thing that's been going on for generations there, this story that has carried through for generations. So I get why some of that had to be exposed. I don't know that we needed quite all the detail that they used at the first half of the film, but definitely an interesting story. You got a murder mystery in there. It's not really an itchy mystery in terms of leaving you with a bunch of unanswered questions. You're going to get answers for most of the questions that this film poses, outside of one other subject they kind of tack on towards the end of it, which is an interesting twist. I'm not going to blow it for you in case you want to watch it. But, you know, it's still a murder mystery. You're going through some trial stuff. Definitely fits into what I consider the whole brain scratch thing. So I think some of you out there will like it. Not too long of a watch at 1 hour and 12 minutes, if I remember correctly. Could it have been a little shorter? Probably. But it still felt about right. It certainly did not need to be longer. So I think that they were close to really nailing the mark in terms of how much content they had and how long this piece should be. Will you guys check it out? I don't know. It's up to you. I think it fits pretty well for this month. It is an interesting story. Definitely some historical notes that you will gain from watching this piece. I will have a link to the official website for the film in the description box below. I did see that they had some other places where you could go and possibly purchase or rent it. So if you are looking to check it out, be sure to check out that link. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Itchy Mysteries. Hope each and every one of you out there is having a nice week, and I'll see you back here on the Lord and Arts channel tomorrow. Take care.